All right, now we know. Okay, so I finally got the 2-door roofing quarters welded to the 4-door body. My door jambs are where they're supposed to be. The gaps look good. The doors are lined up with the body lines on the quarter panel with new bushings and stuff in the door hinges. So all that is where it should be. Now I can finally start cutting the back of the car apart so I can replace the quarter panels. This car was hit pretty good on the passenger side in the back here. Bumper's all mangled up. The inside of the trunk panel has a big crease in it. It's folded up a little bit. It's moved in about 1 inch at the top here. I think I can get something in there and straighten all that out, but I'm not sure. The center of the trunk pan is completely rusted out along with the gas tank strap braces or whatever you call them. Not sure everything under the taillight panel. I'm not sure how that looks. The other side's pretty straight and not very rusty. This one side over here is not bad. I'm not sure about the trunk drop off. What I'm going to try to do is get the bumper off, get the tail lights out, see how bad the cross panel and all that stuff is, and kind of figure out what we're working with. Okay, so some of the bumper bolts stripped out. I got 5 of the 8 out. 3 of them are stuck, 2 on one side, 1 on the other. So I'm going to have to resort to a little bit more primitive method of removing the back bumper. So what I ended up having to do was I took my Ziz wheel and I cut around the bolts right here, and hopefully I can just take these loose because I can get to what's on the back of them. These I couldn't get to the back of. I mean, I probably could on this outside one, but I'll be honest with you, I can't tell if you see in there, but it looks pretty rusty. Not sure what I got it loose. So I cut all of those, and now I'm going to take the bottom bolts loose. I've got 1 on this side that's still hooked up, and I've got 2 on this side. The 2 outer ones are still hooked up. So hopefully what I can do is take the bottom bolts loose and then pull the chrome off, and then I can do something with the bumper brackets. Okay, so I got these 2 strips, the little flanges cut off. I got all these cut around. I got these 2 cut around, and I actually got these 2 bolts out. So hopefully this thing will just pull off now. There we go. So I've got the one here. This bumper bracket is pretty rusty. And then over here, I've got these 2 that are spinning. They did start coming loose, but they just they spun, and I wasn't ever going to be able to get them loose. I'll have to get a saw in there behind it, probably a Sawzall, and cut it. Now my cross rail, or whatever you call it, looks like it's in really good shape, other than right here where it's beat in. Not terrible. This panel here, I mean the taillight panel's junk, but this panel here actually doesn't look all that bad. I've made a piece before. I mean, it's a little bit crusty right here in the center. All right, well, we're going to get the bumper brackets off, and then I'll figure out how I'm going to get the taillight panel out. But I may leave the taillight panel in until I pull everything out, so that way that should give me, I mean, I know it's been up, maybe that'll hurt me, but if I can keep the taillight panel in there, that may give me an idea where it's supposed to be, although I got enough cars around here I can figure it out. I'm not sure what I'll do there. So looking at this thing, I've been trying to figure out what I'm going to do to fix it. It's been hit over here on the passenger side, and pretty much everything from the trunk latch support over this way has been folded in. More so on this end, less down there. The other side is fine. It's actually laid back just a hair. This side is straight up and down right here, and then it's actually folded over right there, you can tell. So I've got 2 options. I can cut that stuff out and replace all of it, including this rear cross rail, which I have one. Or I can, and I do have a trunk pan to section that piece out of. I've got one that's in good enough shape to use that, but the whole pan is in good shape. I don't want to use it for this car. So what I'm going to try to do is pull it out. And I have a frame machine, but it's not here. And getting that big thing to my house, in the shop, all set up, and actually I don't really have a pulling arm for it. I still have to make something there, but it would hold the car. But anyway, doing all that's just too much work. So I went to that cheap tool store and I bought a porta power today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld a plate to the back of the trunk pan right here, which this is actually under the taillight panel as part of the trunk pan. I'm going to weld a plate here, weld some chain to the plate, hook the porta power up, and see if I can pull that out without launching it across the shop and killing somebody. All right, so I've got my plate clamped on there. I cleaned this up pretty good. Okay, not really. I cleaned this up some. It'll probably be okay. Going to weld this plate there. Now this is a lot thicker than this, so I'm going to kind of start welding here and drag it over to that metal, and hopefully it won't just tear all this off, because there is some, pretty good surface rust there. So hopefully it won't tear all that off when I go to pull out on it, but for right now, we're going to get this plate welded the best I can. Okay, so this is the not so brilliant idea I came up with, and really I'm not sure it's going to work. I don't know if this thing's actually going to pull it out or if it's going to all come apart and hit me right in the middle of my medulla oblongata or what. It's just going to fall off, ain't it? Yeah. This isn't going to work. Okay, so it kept wanting to pull up. So now what I've done was I've attached my chain to the bottom of that, put the ram in the middle, and hopefully this will work. So before it was pulling it at an angle. So now it should be in the middle. As long as I don't put the pad of this up there blocking what needs to come out, maybe this will work. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's got some tension on it. I don't know if anywhere in the shop is safe from this crap. Why is it pulling up again? Oh, it's tearing the metal. Dang it. So now I have a bolt through the bumper bolt hole, which is bent forward anyway. So it's a grade 8 bolt, 3/8. Probably got plenty of tensile strength. Not sure what it's going to do. Probably still angle up some and fall out, or rip the metal out, but we'll see. Okay, now it's starting to put some tension on there. Okay, it's pulling on it. It's not trying to pull through yet. Back here. All right, it's got a bunch of pressure on it. So I'm gonna get my big hammer and I'm gonna tap back here on the back of that. Once I get it past a certain point, it'll probably pull out much easier. It's going to break and rip something. All right, now we know. All right, so I just let it sit there under pressure and it finally just tore itself completely loose. Pulling from that real thin metal probably wasn't a good idea. So we'll start over. Okay, so after that failed last night, I came up with this idea. It seemed like a big washer going through the bumper bolt hole that is also pushed forward. That needs to come out anyway, so if it pulls that out some, as long as it doesn't tear it, I'm good. And then I put a bolt through right at the top of where that is pushed in. And I put a piece of angle and the bolt goes through that. Hopefully it'll pull all of that back out to where it needs to be. Now, it did move it a little bit last night, but not very much. I'm hoping once the tension gets off of it, it'll pull easier. But this is, and I've got a different head on the ram here, so hopefully this will go way better than last night, and it's also a bunch safer. So let's see what it does. All right, let's see if I can stand over here far enough out of the way to stay out of the shrapnel, I hope. All right, it's got some pressure on it now. All right, something moved. I just can't tell what. I don't want to get my face that close to it. I don't think this is working. Take the pressure off. Okay, so after thinking about it for a few minutes, I think a lot of this isn't pulling. Now, I'm not set up to do any kind of big pulls like on a frame machine, but I think a lot of my problem is I've got this, wrinkled up quarter panel, all this filler, the tail light panel, the cross rail panel, the trunk panel. There's a little piece that goes between the quarter panel and the cross rail and the drop off. All that is added tension. So I think what I can do is go ahead and cut the tail light panel out, the quarter panel off, that little piece loose, and then I'll just be pulling the cross rail panel and pulling on the trunk panel. Now, ideally, you would want to pull all of this out together so that you get it where it needs to be, and then when you put your new stuff on, it ought to be pretty close, and less trial and error there. But I don't have that option. So what I'm going to do is just cut the quarter panel loose, the tail light panel out, cut that little piece off, try to pull it again, and hopefully with a lot less stuff to try to pull out, a lot less, I'm hoping a lot less tension. That'll make all that easier to straighten out, and maybe I can beat on it a little bit too with the hammer. I'm not sure, but we're going to try that, and if that doesn't work, well, we've already got this stuff cut out. So all this stuff is on the way to get that out to cut it. So either way, it's coming loose. All right. So I'm hoping that has relieved a lot of the tension on this area. There's nothing here holding it, nothing on top holding it. It's just the tail light panel. I'm sorry. It's just the cross rail panel and the trunk panel. And then whatever stuff on the inside of the support there is bent. But we'll see. We're going to find out right now. Well, I don't have as much to hide behind now. That's different. All right, let's see here. Y'all can see better than I am. Is it working? I can't tell. Hey. Oops. Okay, so apparently the tensile strength of a 3/8 grade 8 bolt is a little bit weaker than whatever forces are holding this crap crooked. So I guess I'm going to go to a bigger bolt and try it again, because it did look, I'm going to have to go back and look at the video, but it did look like it had moved out a little bit before it decided to become a projectile. Okay, so I'm not sure if there's a safe place to stand or a safe place for my camera to be, but I went to some 5/8 bolts, no, 1/2 inch, 7/16, something like, they're bigger bolts, and they're both grade 8. So we're gonna see what that gets us. That's actually not bad. I mean, it's not good. Looks like it's pulled out a bit. It is still wrinkled up a pretty good bit. Uh-oh. What was that? I broke the chain. Okay, so here's where we're at. I beat on this thing. I've got a little bit closer. I'll show you that in just a second. Now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get the rest of the taillight panel out, and then I'm going to try to fit a new taillight panel in there, at least on the driver's side, and kind of look where the passenger side is kind of setting and see if it looks like it's going to be close, because I think I got it close. All right, so it's still ugly, but it is definitely better than it was. And using a straight edge, my nasty rusty edge here is really close to being in line with this using a big straight edge. That side is straight, and this whole thing has kind of a bow to it that goes, you know, kind of this way. But what I want to do is I want to get the rest of this tail light panel out. This quarter was never really, I mean, it had a little ding here, but for the most part, this four-door quarter is where it's supposed to be. So I should be able to get a tail light, and it might be twisted a little bit from where this car was pulled on with the chain by me. But I should be able to get a tail light panel fit on this side and kind of look at the other side and guess about it, and get an idea if this is going to work at all. I can replace this piece right here. I've made one before. It's not too bad. Just put a flat piece in a bead roller, put your step on there, and you know, you're good to go. I had to do that on Franken Nova and one other car. I've got a new end cap right here for my drop off or quarter panel, whatever part it's an end cap for. It's an end cap. I've got a new one of those if I need it. I've got that one actually pretty straight. It's really rusty, but it's pretty straight. So once I get the taillight panel fit onto this quarter and across here, and I think I've got this side close enough, I'm going to go ahead and cut all of this quarter panel off, the four-door and the two-door quarter panel, cut everything off, get the new one set on here, and see if I can maintain my door jamb, my roof alignment, and see if it's even close to being where it needs to be on the taillight panel. And once I get that kind of screwed in place or tacked in place, then I can go over here and start taking all my driver's quarter stuff off, and then I'll know I'm in the ballpark. Now, if it doesn't add up over here, I guess I'm going to have to do something with replacing a big section of the trunk pan or the whole trunk pan. I'm just not sure yet. Okay, so I think I'm ready to trial fit my taillight panel. I got the old one out of the way. It mostly peeled up. What was left of it mostly peeled up. And then there's some spot welds. I ground down real quick. We're going to try to fit the taillight panel, see if it lines up with the driver's side quarter, see how it lines up with the lip and what's left of the trunk pan that was sticking out that was all mangled. And then if we can get it kind of lined up and everything's going to work, then we can start on the passenger side quarter. I've got it fairly straight, considering it, okay, compared to what it was, it's fairly straight now, okay? It's way better than it was. I did have to grind down a few spot welds that didn't peel away whenever I peeled up the rest of the taillight panel. I'm going to get the taillight panel in, clamped on this side, maybe clamped right here on the latch, and then we're going to see what this side over here is looking like. But mainly I'm going to get a trunk lid on here. I think I've got one I can bolt on with a latch and see if it'll latch and close. Because if I can get the latch in the right spot for a trunk lid, and I can get this spot over here, this side over here on the driver's side right, then I'm pretty sure I'll know where my passenger side's got to be. So let's test it and see how it fits. Still a little piece of the old one left on there. And some body filler or seam sealer or something that's stuck down in here. Yeah, a big chunk of seam sealer. All right, now let's see if this thing will go in over here about where it's supposed to go. Now let's see if we can get the latch close to where it's supposed to be, which should be right about there. Okay, that's not terrible. Now, I did cut some of this side right here out, past what, just instead of drilling all the spot wells that I couldn't find out because of the rust, I cut that out. That still gets me close enough. I wasn't going to use that quarter panel anyway. This section down here is in where it's supposed to be. It might be a tad bit off, but not much. There's still a bunch of lead right here on this part that goes over that. This needs to come back this way some, and I might use another, I don't think I can get pliers in there. I'm not sure what I'll do there. The bottom is right where it needs to be. It does separate a little bit right here, but then over here it goes back to where it's supposed to be. So that's pretty good. The latch needs to be right about there. So I think I'm going to tacky it real quick, and because if I put a screw in there, I'm afraid I won't be able to latch. But I'm going to get this tacked or screwed, one of the two. I'll get a screw in over here, and then I'm going to fit a trunk lid on this thing and see if it'll close and anything's going to line up that way, because I know this edge is where it's supposed to be. This here is probably where it's supposed to be, and obviously all this up here and the two hinges are where they're supposed to be. If I can get most of it lined up, then I should be able to get this side cut out on the quarter panel and lined up with the taillight panel, and then I can take everything back apart once I get it marked and clean everything up and start welding stuff together. All right, I am going to attempt to put this deck lid on by myself. This might end horribly wrong, but you know what? It's what we're going to do. This thing's been out in the yard, covered with moss and whatever else. Good thing I don't have to worry about the car too much, huh? That sucks. There's no way that's the right bolt. Where'd these bolts come out of? I need washers. All right, so I thought I had the right bolts that I needed. I don't know if they're even close or not, but they're not big enough. Obviously that's got to go that way and that way and that way. Yeah. So let's loosen those up. And it's got to go this way and that way, right? Yeah. Okay, so what I did, I went in and cut this piece right here off where the lead was. All that was mangled up and keeping this panel from coming out this way. So I put it back. I pulled this quarter panel out farther that way and this in farther this way, or out farther this way. Put another screw in it. It's a little better. So now we're going to try to adjust the lid again, deck lid again. All right. Okay, so I was able to get the deck lid on there. It's still not aligned very good. I did get some more room over here, and now I'm actually above it here and below it there, and then out on this side of it here. I'm not sure that this lid isn't twisted and messed up. This side, the gap is fine, but you know, this is pretty stiff, so I don't think it's who knows with this right here, but across there, it's all sticking out too far. So taillight panel can't come this way anymore because it's locked into that quarter panel, and it's really about at the angle it needs to be anyway. So I guess I'm gonna pull the deck lid off that car and throw it on here and see if it's any better, because this one has been sitting outside for a long time. You know, from here, it looks like it fits okay, but it really doesn't. Okay, so I've got this other deck lid on. I have not tried to close it yet. I took my taillight panel back off. I adjusted this side more. There was a piece of metal inside here, so I got this to come out just a little bit, not much. And There's no latch on this, and this is all mangled. But I'm gonna try to close it and see if it just lines up better. Much better. It's much better all the way across. So I guess that other, and this still isn't pulled out all the way, but I guess that other trunk lid is damaged. So I'm gonna put the latch back in this lid, because this is the one I got the latch out of earlier. So I'm gonna put the latch back in this lid and see if I can get it to latch okay and see how it looks, because this is way better than the other one. I've got a gap on this side. It's close, but I got a gap. And I got a good gap over here. And even though it's high back here, the rest of it seems normal. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've got my latch back on here. This thing's such a mess. It's not close to latching. Here's my problem. All right, if I can get my tail light panel to come out just a little bit over here, which again, there was a small dent over here that I beat back out. Now we're looking a lot better. And of course, once you get the other quarter panel over here pushing out on this taillight panel, this taillight panel is twisted a little bit. That's a lot better. Now, the trunk don't need to be that tight, but I can adjust that some. I can move that down. These latches do have a little bit of adjustment, not a bunch, but a little bit. And keep in mind, this thing isn't attached completely like it's supposed to be, but we can try to get this latch to come down just a little bit. It did not move much. But as rusty as this trunk lid is, that might be another part of the problem. At least it's straight though. The other one's not straight. So, and this is also adjustable. So there's plenty that could be going on here. Plenty that could be going on. Let's try this. All right, it's still too tight right here. But again, I think we can work with all this. Okay, so some of this is kind of a waste of time, if maybe not all of it. But a lot of this fitting stuff I'm doing, I'm just trying to see if I can get it close. If I can get it close with the junk that's here, then with the new stuff, I can get it a lot better. I just need to make sure it's doable. Now, what I did was I measured from the door jamb here, right beside the lock, all the way down to right here. And I did the same thing on the other side. And I'm using a tape measure. This is kind of crude because you're going over a bunch of stuff. But I got within 1/8 of an inch of those two measurements. I think I can actually make this work. Once I get this out where it's supposed to be, yeah, I think we'll be okay. And that actually, still about the same. Still too tight, but again, not sure how twisted that taillight panel is that I had sitting out on another car, and I think it got kind of, I think I got something laid over on top of it and it was twisted a little bit, which is my fault. So yeah, I think we can do this. Okay, so that was a lot of work, but I came a long way. I didn't get the back of the car pulled out quite as great, as easy as I would have liked, but it is pulled out and everything seems to be fitting pretty good considering the scope of this project. Now, once I get everything fitted, I will clean up all the surface rust there. And then once I get the quarter panels fitted and the new taillight panel, and I might not use this taillight panel, I might grab another one. They're not very expensive. And I want to make sure that I don't have one that's twisted up in there. So new taillight panel, new quarter panels, new deck lid. I'm sure I can get it all twisted to where it fits right and it's not a mangled mess. Now, if I do that, I'm going to clean up the trunk lip really well, get rid of the rust, maybe weld a new piece in on one side where it was all banged up, and then put a new trunk pan patch in the middle of it. So if I get all that and I think it's looking great, I'll order the roof skin. And you know, the roof skin is supposed to go over the edge of the quarter panels anyway. Right here, once you melt the lead out, the roof skin is actually sitting on top of the quarter panel. So what I'm probably going to do is melt the lead out of this thing and cut the quarter panel, or cut the roof skin right there. And then I'll take the quarter panel out and get the new one set in place, because it's about an 80% chance I'm replacing this roof skin. I'm not worried about cutting that one piece out because I look at the rest of it. So not going to be a big deal to cut it a little bit more. So hopefully the next time you see this thing, it'll have brand new quarter panels on it and a deck lid and a brand new taillight panel. We'll see you guys next video.